Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible attacking game from the Champions Chess Tour Chessable Masters 2024, the winners bracket Grand Final 2. It is Levon Arunyan versus Vincent Keimer, and this is the final game of their match. Vincent won the first one, and now Levon needs to bounce back with the white pieces in order to force further tiebreaks. So let's see what happened here and who won Division 2 of this prestigious event. Now, Levon with the white pieces opens with pawn to e4. And a couple of years back, you would think, okay, what would someone like Vincent even be doing playing against Levon? But nowadays, on the live ratings list, Vincent is actually world number 17 and Levon is world number 25. But still, if Levon has a good day with the white pieces, no one stands a chance with black. So let's see if he had a good day. With e4, pawn to e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and knight to c6, bishop to c4. The Italian game is on the board, and now knight to f6. The two knights defense, and not everyone's favorite, but d3, the so-called modern bishop's opening, with bishop to c5. And castles. We have pawn to a6, c3, and bishop to a7, the line we have pretty much every other video as it's very popular. Bishop to b3, pawn to d6, we have rook to e1, and now kingside castles. Again, I will repeat, if knight to g4 going after the f2 pawn, white will just play rook e2, defend the f2 pawn, kick away the knight, and the rook will actually be very nicely placed on e2. Later on, you can easily double up with rook a to e1. In case you were wondering. So castles, we have knight b to d2, pawn to h6, and now knight to f1. All standard maneuvers, nothing new here. Bishop to e6. Now you could tuck the bishop back to c2 for later use, but here Levon goes for a trade. We have bishop captures, f captures, and bishop to e3 also offers a trade of dark square bishops. With Vincent captures, we have bishop captures, but now not f captures or knight captures, but rook captures on e3. And there are a couple of games. Queen to d7 is a known move, knight to e7 is a known move, but Vincent goes for the immediate pawn to d5, and it is now as of move 13 that we have a completely new game. And okay, queen to b3, putting pressure on the b7 pawn, also very nice, as you might have some future possible action against the black king along this diagonal. So queen to d6, asking Levon, are you maybe interested in a nice juicy pawn? But of course, if Levon captures the pawn, then Vincent traps his queen. So of course, he's not going to do that. He plays rook a to e1. The idea behind rook a to e1 is that Levon wants to capture on d5, and then he just wants to expose the e5 pawn and win some material. The problem is Vincent plays pawn to d4, and look at what happens here. C captures on d4, e captures, attacking the rook, and okay, rook goes back, and now knight to h5. And with this d4 pawn clamping down the white's entire position, it's very hard for Levon to find any use for those rooks. Probably shifting them over to the c file, trying to maybe, prevent the knight from moving as the c7 pawn is weak, and that's exactly what he does. Rook to c2, and now Vincent could continue in a lot of ways. He could continue with something like, knight to b4, he could go after the rook and then play pawn to c5 to cement that d4 pawn. He could go for knight to a5 to attack the white queen here, but he goes for rook captures on f3. And this is a sensational exchange sacrifice because, it's just incredibly complicated to defend this attack. To give you an example, if you capture the rook, then comes knight e5. And okay, knight captures on f3 is the threat, and after you stop that, let's say you play anything, let's say knight d2, defend the pawn, then knight comes to f4. You're going to attack this pawn. Now this pawn cannot be defended, and you can win this game whichever way you prefer. You can go for the kingside attack, you can just play c5, b5, c4, and completely, crush your opponent with some positional play. This is dead lost. So instead, Levon plays the only move that keeps him in the game, and that is queen captures on b7, attacks the rook and attacks the knight here. And now it's a pretty crazy position, and you could probably, think of a couple of good moves, but what would be the best move here? You don't need to pause the video, maybe just, give, or even pause it, give the position some thought. What would you play here with black? Yeah, so here with black, you play knight to b4. it's a really beautiful move that allows Levon to capture the rook with check, and also you could capture this rook, and also your rook on c2 is hanging. So what can you do? You can't really capture the rook on a8, because if you capture that, then Vincent had the idea of rook to f8 attacking the queen, and once the queen moves, just picking up the rook on c2, and of course completely winning. So Levon again plays the only playable move. G captures on f3, so he doesn't take the so-called free rook. And now again, this position where unless you find the only move, Levon will just completely crush you. Again, feel free to pause the video and continue the attack for Vincent, while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on having incredible board vision. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen back to f8. Look at this weird move. Queen back to f8. Defends the rook, defends the knight, keeps the c2 rook under attack, and also puts pressure on the f3 pawn. You can later on remaneuver the queen to f6, to f4, go for the kingside attack. This move just does everything. And Levon still has to react to his rook being under attack. Now, you could maybe move it back to d2 to guard the d3 pawn, but I mean, that just looks incredibly passive. So Levon goes for rook captures on c7, and it is the absolute best move, putting pressure on that g7 pawn. So what do you play here? Well, again, you have to be precise. Rook to b8 attacks the queen, and after queen to a7, going after the d4 pawn, now comes knight captures on d3, attacking the rook on e1. So okay, rook to d1, and now knight to e5. Also, knight to f4 is very nice. Vincent goes for knight to e5, and now rook d to c1, doubling up on the c file, and here we have king to h7. Now, how do you continue this with white? Well, objectively, the position is still playable and it's a draw. But Levon had over 5 minutes on the clock and Vincent had 1 minute on the clock, as it's a rapid game. And here Levon played queen to c5. He offered a queen trade. I'm just going to show you how complicated the position is and how you should play it in order to actually save this game. You have to play knight to g3, which is just a weird move to play because your f3 pawn is hanging here, and well, it's impossible to calculate. For example, knight captures on f3, king g2, knight capture, knight to h4 check, king to f1 now, and queen to f3. But turns out there's no checkmate here. Queen captures on b8, and that's pretty much it. Knight captures on g3, h captures, and queen to h1 check, and you would have to settle for a perpetual here. You can't go to d1, otherwise queen d3 check, followed by knight to f3 checkmate. So you go back, and here we would have a perpetual checking sequence, and the game would end in a draw. Only one of the lines that end in a draw, but I chose the nicest one to show you. But here Levon played queen to c5, and now Vincent plays queen to f6. It's a very nice counter to queen to c5. It just defends the knight here and prepares to start an attack against the white king. Also, I will show a very nice line with queen to f4. Queen to f4 is only a little bit better because with queen to f6 you allow the Levon and maybe queen to e7 will be sort of a stubborn defense. It's still winning for black, but very hard to win. But just to give you, an idea of how our silicon overlords do it, queen to f4, and after knight to g3, rook to b5. Only winning move, but it is very, very impressive. Later on, you will, shift to once the queen moves, you will capture on f3, you will bring the rook into the attack, and that's pretty much it. But okay, Vincent, after this queen to c5 move, went queen to f6, again, objectively winning, and now knight to g3. Like I said, the only way to maybe punish this queen to f6 move a little bit is to go queen to e7, but then again, after knight captures on f3, king to h1, and queen to g6, going for checkmate here, you will have to play knight g3, for example, captures, and there's still more work to be done here. It's not a game over like in the previous line. You will have to rely on your passed d pawn and some other resources. But okay. After queen f6, knight to g3, and now knight captures on f3 with check, and now king to h1. Much better than king to g2. If you go king g2, then look at this, knight to f4 check, and that's it. Wherever you go, you can't really do anything. If you go back, for example, with king to h1, there's even rook captures on b2, then you're gonna have to worry about rook captures on f2, rook captures on h2, checkmate, and of course, if you capture the knight, then knight to d3, a nice discovery, picks up the white queen on c5. So instead, after knight captures king to h1 by Levon, and now knight to e5, getting ready to finish the attack. We have knight captures on h5, eliminating one of the attackers, and now one last precise move order by Vincent. Queen f3 check, not of course going after the knight right away. King to g1, and now queen captures on h5. We have pawn to h3, and now rook captures on b2. Queen to e7, there is nothing you can do here. Levon threatens checkmate, but it's all over. Queen to g6 with check, king to f1, and now knight to d3. And he was in this position on move 32 that Levon Aronian resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Whatever you play, rook captures on f2 checkmate, there is no way to play any move that will sort of keep you in the game. You can play rook to c2, but I mean, white has a big variety of options, like rook to b1 check. You can't go back to b1. You can't go to the g file. You have to play king to e2, and then just queen captures on e4 check, king to d2, rook to d1, a nice sacrifice, and after king captures, queen to e1 will be checkmate, as the rook on c2 made it possible. So of course Levon had enough of this, and yeah, I think he even lost on time here. Vincent had 13 seconds on the clock, and Levon really it took all of his time to come up with a defense. It's just that there wasn't one. So incredible play by young Vincent here, and rook captures on f3, while perhaps not objectively the strongest move. I mean, it truly is impossible to defend. Like, when I say it's possible to defend when the engine defends, that's not what a human can defend, especially not in a rapid game. In classical, maybe you hold it if you're like having the best day possible, but other than that, no sir. So yeah, that's the game. Brilliantly done by Vincent, taking down a former 2800. In a class basically, like no other, Levon Aronian. So congratulations on that, and yeah, we'll see what happens and how Vincent will do in next run in Division 1. So I would like to thank Jeremy Aniftos, Carl Weinberg, Rajashi Chaudhuri, Brian Stone, and David Gasparian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.